In three, two.
So fast growing businesses really fail more often than like the smaller businesses. I'm Tanisha Westbrook, and this is Tanisha Westbrook Show. And this is where we are breaking down the hottest stories when it comes to what's happening with Black business, right? So we're going to talk about entrepreneurship and marketing and a lot of things that affect us as a culture. So this week, something that's been in the news is this story about Pinky Cole. Do y'all know Pinky? Okay, so well, I find it interesting about her story because of like the way she started. So her business uh started in like 2018. And from what I can remember, just based off like things that I read or um like watched, was that she started off, she was probably like working in retail or something, and but she had like a side business and she got invited uh to this shoot. It was a celebrity. I don't know if it was Snoop Dogg or somebody, but it was somebody. It was like a celebrity shoot. She brought her vegan food. Everybody loved it. And so she started like peddling the vegan food. And then before you know it, she came up with Slutty Vegan. It blew up. She had all of these restaurants. They opened hella restaurants, right? And she not only, it wasn't just like a success story about a black owned small business. It was like a cultural phenomenon. Like the marketing behind it, people getting excited about just this black woman uh entering the restaurant industry, but doing it in like a way that was super disruptive. So fast forward to today, Pinky Cole is she's been in the news several times. But today, she's in the news because she filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, right? So in the same time that she is rolled out as the new housewife on Housewives of Atlanta, which is eh, eh, to be determined on how that is going to affect her brand, because I'm curious about that. But the same time that was happening, she filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. And we're going to talk about bankruptcy and like entrepreneurship and all of those things. But what I find interesting about her is just her approach to filing bankruptcy. And the bigger story here though that I want to talk about is um the reality for like black owned businesses that blow up and grow really fast, and like what's the flip side of that? What's the dark side of that? So let's get into it. Now what I did find funny about this was, so people were like up in arms like, how are you so this successful entrepreneur, but you filed for bankruptcy? And I really loved her response, because when you think about, like, personal branding and things like that, she started making videos like, you know how rappers feud and they make response videos? She started making videos. So she did a video that was like a spoof of Miss Rachel, where she was breaking down she had on, like, the overalls and stuff, like, I thought it was funny, and she was just, breaking down, like, what the different types of, bankruptcy. So I thought that was interesting because I really had to like do some research about bankruptcy and what that really means. Like, most people know Chapter 7 bankruptcy, right? So that's when you are going to the courts and saying, I ain't got it. So they just liquidating all your assets, everything that you have so that you can pay off your debt. So when people think like, oh, that person filed for bankruptcy, um, that's what that's what it is. But in her case, she didn't file for that. So I wanna break down the different types of bankruptcy so that, like, we all know what's going on, and I had to do some research on this, so I wanna pull it up just to make sure we know what's going on. Okay, so with the bankruptcy thing, so Pinky filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy. And just to be clear, she had like over $1 million in debt. So one of the things I thought was interesting was she had like a loan that was $1.2 million that she got from the Small Business Administration during COVID. Y'all remember those loans that everybody got during the COVID season, like the relief loans? She went and got one of those. I was like, really? Really? So that's what you have to pay back. And then the other part of the debt was taxes. Like she owed like almost $200,000 to the state of Georgia for the restaurants that she had there. So that totaled to about 1.3, 1.4 million, right? And so this brings me to like the type of bankruptcy that she filed. So she filed chapter 11. So you have chapter 7, which I just told y'all about. Chapter 7 bankruptcy is when you ain't got it and they just liquidate everything and you pay off your money. I mean, you pay off the debt. Now, chapter 11 is not the same as a business shutting down. So in chapter 7, your business is shut down, you gone, it's over. And chapter 11 is more about reorganizing your business. So a lot of times people file chapter 11 in entrepreneur like when they have a business because they want to give more organization to the people that they owe. So, um, they're gonna keep on operating as a business, but they need to reorganize the debt so that the business is able to function and operate. So they may be creating a repayment plan or restructuring the debt overall, so that it gives the business time to fix the finances, right? So that's what Pinky did. And what I thought was interesting, or I thought this was funny, because whenever you hear like on one side, people were like, girl, you filing for bankruptcy, but then on the other side, Donald Trump, President Donald Trump, he done filed for bankruptcy so many times that you hear their argument as well. So what do y'all think? Like, how do y'all look at Black entrepreneurs and them doing things like filing bankruptcy? Like, where do you think they're going wrong in their businesses? Um, Also, another note, if you think of like major companies who have also filed bankruptcy, you have Delta Airlines, you have General Motors, and Marvel, like the movie company, I was trying to say conglomerate. They've even filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy. So, um, it is what it is. And Donald Trump, it says that he's filed bankruptcy, Chapter 11 bankruptcy several times for his casinos and hotels. So, mm. And then the last thing I want to run by y'all is just the Chapter 13 bankruptcy. And that's not what she did, but this is when you have a personal repayment plan. So this is for personal debt versus business debt. So you have chapter 7, which your business is shutting down. You have chapter 11 where you're reorganizing, and then you got chapter 13 where that's more of the personal debt. So I think that's helpful to know as an entrepreneur because hopefully it doesn't come to this, but I think it's par for the course, right? Um so this goes back to the bigger conversation about how businesses grow really fast. Like if you think about, I'm trying to think of like other examples of Slutty Vegan. There are a few examples of businesses who like blow up, especially on social media and the restaurant industry that were like, oh, do y'all remember that what was it, the turkey leg hut? Y'all remember the turkey leg hut, how they blew up? And, the food was good, they were going viral, they were making bands. The business was growing, and then all of a sudden, internally, the business couldn't keep up with the growth that was happening. So when you think about these businesses that are growing, there are a couple of things that come to my mind that makes it hard for a business to stay alive once they start growing. Cause think about it like this. So imagine like you at home baking cookies and you start baking cookies cause your significant other like, ooh, girl, your cookies is fire. No pun intended. Your cookies is fire. And then you're like, okay, you start selling the cookies to your friends and the rest of your family, and you can handle it. Like you go to the grocery store, you can handle the getting the groceries and bringing it to your house, and you got just enough space in your kitchen. Everything is going good with the cookies. And then now it's like, oh, well, the school wants some of your cookies too. So now you like, "Oh, I gotta do bigger batches because now I gotta take it to the school for my daughter basketball team," right? Then from there, now all the parents hearing about it, so now you got other schools that want your cookies, and it's just you. It's just you, and you're trying to figure out how to handle all of these orders and things that are going on. That is what's happening with businesses that are in the especially like in the restaurant industry, but that is what's happening with these businesses that are growing too fast. You start off good, you got all the money coming in, everything seems to be going according to plan or no plan. Maybe you just blew up, out of nowhere. But what the problem is that if you're not prepared for that growth, then you're basically going to your business is gonna fall off at some point. It just is what it is. And what being unprepared looks like is not really having first of all, if it's just you. So going back to the Pinky Cole story, it probably was just her. She probably had a small team, but not really much infrastructure when it came to okay, now I have one restaurant, now I got 5 restaurants. At one point they had like 14 to 16 restaurants that were happening. Well, that were opening. So you have to think about you, are you the person that's responsible for all of this growth? Have you built out a team that you can trust where you can operate on a higher level? What does your back office look like? Like how are you processing orders? How are you sourcing things? How what are your expenses looking like? Because if you have more orders, that means you have to pay for more things. You may have to pay for more people to help. So when you when they say more money, more problems, it's the same thing for businesses. More you got more business, you got more problems. And a lot of entrepreneurs, especially Black people, we are not prepared for that growth. How am I doing? I'm a little stopped up. I think I need to take a 2 second. How are we on time? Where we at? Ooh, you go, girl.
Oh, you getting in your bag for a second.
Getting back, stay in the bag.
Oh, I wanna talk about that too. So, going back to what I said earlier about Pinky Cole, I mentioned, like, she worked in retail or something. She really was a producer, and, apparently she had a restaurant that was in Harlem that closed down before she actually moved into this Slutty Vegan restaurant line. But what I think is interesting also about Pinky Cole's story is that this isn't the first time that she's been in the news when it comes to money. The last time she was in the news, it was because she lost her business. Like literally, they pushed her out of the business, and we didn't know, like, we didn't know what was going on as the public, but then all of a sudden she came back out with, like, this campaign about how she got her business back. And that leads me to my thoughts around, like, when it comes to being a Black entrepreneur, especially a Black woman, there is this pressure that is placed on you, especially if you're high profile. As a entrepreneur, you already have pressure on you to grow this business into something that's successful, especially if you had haters or people telling you that it wasn't plausible, you know, then that's even more like pressure on you to succeed. But when you think about people like that are super high profile like Pinky Cole, she has become a cultural symbol, right? So imagine that amount of pressure on a woman from she was just selling, a little vegan food, and now all of a sudden she is representation for Black culture, right? So that's something that we don't talk about when it comes to Black business. There is this pressure for us to be performative, like we're performing success, right? A lot of us have the cars, the houses, we're posting, we have all of the things online, and it appears that we are moving in the right direction, that we are succeeding. And behind the scenes, we're doing things like trying to figure out how to organize our business or figuring out the money side of things. Or hell, we tired, we burned out. Shit, trying to figure out how to hire the right people. Are we paying ourselves? There's so many things that are going on behind the scenes. And it's like we have to perform this version of success when really we need time as entrepreneurs to figure it out. We need time as entrepreneurs to make mistakes, to be able to file bankruptcy and use that as a tool to grow our business or to or restructure it in a way where it is more sustainable for the future. But because of this unrealistic expectation for people who own Black businesses, I think it gives us a disservice. It's one of the things that really hinders businesses, especially that are like high profile. It hinders them from being able to grow the way that our white counterparts, they aren't experiencing that. Which brings me to a question about uh how Pinky Cole is managing all of these things as a Black woman founder. You know, how what you doing, girl? What how are you figuring that part out? Um, because there are so many other stories, and we'll talk about them in some of the other episodes, but there is this there is this silent thing that's going on behind the scenes about how Black businesses are closing, how Black businesses are struggling. And it's not because, we don't have good products. It's not because we don't have uh, passionate people who have started those businesses, and a lot of times it's not even because we don't have the skill set. It is because a lot of us are not equipped for the growth. And the other thing is, like, back in 2020, there was a lot of support around. There was a lot of rallying around Black owned businesses. But fast forward to 2026, you hell, you'll be lucky if you get one or two supporters, because it's just a more difficult climate right now. So that is a bigger conversation that we'll definitely be approaching in the future. But tell me what y'all think about this. Tell me what y'all think about um Pinky Cole's story, using bankruptcy as a tool, and this cultural phenomenon when it comes to a business blowing up and having all of this great social media success and grand openings, but on the flip side of that, the struggle that's really happening behind the scenes with Black businesses. Tanisha Westbrook signing out. Millennial peace sign.